Yeah, monsters hate sluts and jocks.
So it would seem.
Monsters hate sluts and jocks.
Yeah,
that's a good one.
Okay.
Did you ever see that movie? Did you ever see that movie? Did you ever see that movie?
Welcome to Hey, did you ever see that movie? I'm your host, Des, and as always, I'm joined by my lovely co-host, Lynn.
I'm going to go read a book with pictures.
Okay. And back by popular demand, the podcaster with an opinion, Bat.
Hey.
All right. What's up, buddy? Today, we will be reviewing the 2012 comedy horror movie, Cabin in the Woods, screenplay by Joss Whedon and directed by Drew Goddard, starring Chris Hemsworth and many others. As always, this podcast will contain spoilers, so if you haven't seen the movie, go watch it. Then come back and listen to the podcast. But before we get into it, let's run that trailer.
Everybody ready? Let's go on the road.
Acquiring targets.
We're looking for
Tillerman Road.
I'll get you there. Getting back. That's your concern.
This is awesome.
No way. Lock them in.
The lambs have come to the killing floor.
Something weird is going on. What is that thing? Someone sent those things here to get us.
We gotta get out of here.
Oh my God, what is this place?
Cabin in the woods.
I think I can get it to go down. Can we warn it to go down?
Rated R in theaters April 13th.
All right. You guys want me to give you a synopsis?
Yes, please.
Go for it.
5 friends go for a break at a remote cabin in the woods where they get more than they bargained for, discovering the truth behind the cabin in the woods.
Dun, dun, dun.
Right.
Dun,
Dumb. All right, let's do it.
All right. I'm just going to, a quick opening thing I want to say, that this was co-written by Joss Whedon, and there's been like a ton of allegations about him being misogynistic, racist, and otherwise tyrannical and a shitty human being. And I would just like to say that us doing a work of Joss Whedon does not mean that we condone his behavior. And that's all.
Also, he was sued for the writing of this. Apparently, he ripped it off word for word out of a self-published book, and there was a lawsuit that I think was settled for a lot of money.
Now, I think he won it. Joss Whedon actually won. They said that there wasn't enough, but there still was a lot. Like when I was reading the different things that were in common, there was a lot. Like it seems like he possibly could have snaked a little bit of that.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I just read that in the IMDb, so I didn't really look into it. It was,
I mean,
kind of
Joss Whedon's a garbage human being at this point, so let's say he ripped it off. Why not?
Yeah, I literally know nothing about it.
I don't know.
So the budget for this movie was $30 million. US and Canada, it grossed $42 million, and worldwide it grossed $70 million. So I would say that's a success.
Yes. I'm sure they would have liked to have made more, but for, an indie film. And the thing is like, so this was initially with one company, and the company closed. And I'm trying to remember which company it was. But so what happened was the movie production company went out of business and shelved this movie. And when they did that, everyone thought it was just never going to see the light of day. And then Lionsgate saw it. Oh, it was MGM that shut up. And at that point, Lionsgate saw it and loved it and put it out. So it almost didn't even come out.
Interesting. Before we get into it, I just want to say that this isn't my genre of movie. Genre of movie. we actually had that argument earlier today that there's no D in it, so I was going to self-correct there. I hate horror movies. I don't like horror movies. They're not my jam. For the most part. I mean, there's some that I like, but for the most part, this isn't really my thing. And I was a little worried about, doing this podcast, doing this review on this, because, one of our other co-hosts, Tony, I know that this movie holds a place in his heart. And I hope this review doesn't, spoil our friendship. No, I'm joking.
I don't know.
Oh, all right. So let's get started, Dylan.
All right. So our movie opens with two coworkers by the name of Hadley and Sitterson. And they're discussing how Sitterson is trying to have a kid with his wife, talking about how she's already baby-proofing the house, and which is ridiculous because she's not even pregnant yet. But these two fellows are played by Bradley Whitford, who has been in a million things, but I recognize mostly from Billy Madison, and Richard Jenkins, who's most famous, from at least to me, from being in Step Brothers. At some point while they're talking, they're joined by Lynn, who's played by Amy Acker. You
Good
might recognize,
actress.
yeah, you might recognize her from TV's Angel, but she's been in other things as well.
Yeah, she's. I noticed her voice before I even saw the face. She's a major character in this in an older series that's a very favorite of mine called Person of Interest.
Oh, cool. Yep. So she joins them and she informs them that Stockholm went south. She's warning them not to mess around, and Hadley mentions a betting pool. They're very dismissive of Lynn, and they get into a golf cart and drive away. So clearly, if you're driving golf carts, this is a huge complex that they're in.
Yeah.
You get a sharp instrumental jolt with the big red letters, Cabin in the Woods. And it's not exactly how I expected the movie to start. It's, this is a government base. It's not particularly cabiny or woodsy. So Des, what did you think about the opening?
Yeah, so I've never seen this movie before. And I was relieved when it started off like this because, I do like tech movies. I like movies like this intro. I love these two actors. I'm a comedy guy. I love comedies. This was good comedy. I enjoyed both of these actors. I thought they played off each other great. And I was relieved when I realized that this was going to be a satire-filled kind of comedy horror movie with a twist and not just like a Final Destination, which this did kind of play like that teen horror movie, but with totally different flavors, something I've actually never seen before, which is going to score points for this. And a fun fact on this is this opening scene was actually meant to confuse movie audiences. The director wanted them to think that they actually walked into the wrong theater and question if they were in the right movie. And Lionsgate fought them on this. They did not want the director to do this, but he stuck to his guns and they put it in there. And I'll tell you, if I didn't know that I rented this movie from Amazon and I had sat down in the theater, I might have said, what? Pat, did you ever see this movie before?
No, actually, I never have. I saw that it had a big name, Chris Hemsworth, and I wasn't sure. When you look at the thumbnail of the image of the movie, like you might see on the case of a movie cover, it looks spooky. It's very gray and white and looks like it's very old and kind of spooky. And I'm like, okay, I'm always up for a good ghost story. The beginning of the movie made me think, did I rent the right movie? Because
Yeah,
it wasn't
So it
even
actually still
remotely
worked on you, even
close.
though you rented the movie.
Yeah, I mean, I'm like, okay, maybe this is good. I'm always looking for something new, especially at a good ghost story. And wasn't
Yeah.
sure what I was looking at.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so also interesting fact, I have seen this movie before. I saw it probably back when it came out. And I didn't remember that they took you right to the underground lab. For some reason, in my mind, like in my memory, the lab doesn't show up till halfway through the movie. Like it just plays as a regular slasher flick with teenagers until like halfway through the movie. So I'm watching it and I'm going, was it always like this? Did I, like what movie did I see?
Was I drunk?
I mean, it's possible.
Interesting.
And also another quick fun fact about Chris Hemsworth is that he got this movie before Red Dawn and before he got cast as Thor. So what happened was they saw him in the dailies for this movie, and that's got him the role in Red Dawn, and it was part of what got him the role of Thor.
Yeah, that's interesting to me because his his performance did not stand out to me in this movie. Like, I wouldn't have watched this movie and been like, oh man, I hope they cast this guy in something else because he was fucking good. No. Actually, the performance I got from Marty, the stoner, was this character for me was fucking great. I loved Marty, and we'll get into that more as the movie rolls on. But immediately, I really loved the performance, and I thought that I thought he carried the group of fives, you know, the group's performance. I thought it was all on him. He carried it along for me.
Absolutely. So the movie takes a bit of a left turn here, and this is now more of what we were expecting. Dana, played by Kristen Connolly, is packing a bag in her underwear. Her friend Jules, played by Anna Hutchinson, comes in and shows off her new blonde hair. They're talking about their trip to the lake in the mountains, and Dana's broken up with her professional boyfriend. Jules is trying to get her to hook up with a friend of her boyfriend's. His name is Kurt. He shows up. He's played by Chris Hemsworth. He tosses a football at the girls, who both avoid it, sails out the window, and it gets caught by Holden, who's played by Jesse Williams, out in the street. Kurt shows us that he's not just a typical meathead by telling Dana to skip the book she was planning on packing, and he suggests a different one that will look better to the teacher. And then he reminds her to put on her pants. So, so Pat, did this take you to where you wanted to be, or were you still confused?
Well, as the opening scene with the two engineers in the golf cart definitely throws you.
Mm-hmm.
Then it gives you the title of the movie, and then it breaks into the music and the girls and everything you just said. And I'm starting to wonder what the hell I'm watching. They climb into the Winnebago and they drive off, and the camera pans up the building and you see somebody on the roof with an earwig. And I'm like, okay, not seeing Ghost Story yet. What the hell?
Yeah. So yes, resident stoner Marty shows up. He's smoking out of that ridiculously large bong before he collapses it down into a travel mug. And they said this was actually a working travel mug. Like, it would work as a travel mug, but it was a working bong as well.
Correct.
That was hysterical when
and
I saw him collapse that.
And it cost $5,000 to make that prop.
Yeah. It doesn't surprise me, but it was worth it because that thing was awesome.
I'd say money well spent. It was a good joke. I liked it.
I loved it.
And like Pat just said, they get into the RV and they're heading out, and you get that hint. There's the man on top of the building with his earpiece in. He's saying the nest is empty. And now we're following the RV. Marty gives us a society needs to crumble rant on our way up to the cabin, so remote that it doesn't even show up on GPS. And Des, I know you agree with Marty on that.
Yeah, I do.
He's not the only one.
Yeah. Again, I want to say that, I'm not really a big horror movie fan, and this, other layer to this movie with, the military guy on the roof and, the surveillance and all this stuff. I was really loving this. This made this movie bearable for me. I actually enjoyed watching it. I was like, oh boy, this is great. This isn't just going to be some stupid slasher in the woods movie that I just am not interested in watching. Just didn't want to see that. And I didn't see that.
So back at the secret facility, Hadley and Sitterson are let into a lockdown room. There's a new guy, and he's a guard, and his name is Truman, and he's played by Brian White. And he's in the room. He checks both their IDs and then lets the men in, and they kind of begin to give him a little interrogation. Are you ready to handle this job? It's a lot, blah, blah, blah. He assures them that he's prepped and ready, and the men start turning on machines and looking for their target. And Pat, I think we're getting to the point that we get that the kids in the RV that are just looking for some fun on the lake are going to be in some trouble, Yeah,
we've all seen our favorite, well, Des may not have because he doesn't like them, have seen our share of slasher flicks.
Yep.
And these characters seemed very specifically written to fit the roles of your stereotypical slasher characters.
Mm-hmm.
You had the jock, you had the stoner, you had the demure girl, you had the brain, and you had the slutty girl. Mm-hmm. And I could see this, and I'm like, okay, Now, I think I probably would have enjoyed this more if I didn't go in thinking it was a ghost story. I think that's where it killed it for me.
Right. Well, then Des misrepresented it because Des said to me, "Is it a ghost story?" And I said, "No, it's really more of a monster movie."
Now,
And
had you said that and brought that to me, I would have been like, okay, that might be interesting to watch. Because when it comes to a ghost story, I like a good ghost story. And they're not easy to find. Not
Right.
recently.
Right. The only
Yeah,
good one I can think of recently, I really liked The Nun. That one was really good, but
I've
it's kind
seen
of, you haven't seen that one yet?
No, I have. It was part of the
The Conjuring movies.
yes, the Conjuring series.
Yeah.
There's like 6 of them.
Yeah, I like them, but
Yeah.
that was my favorite.
this group of 5 kids reminded me of a Scooby-Doo episode.
Oh, absolutely! It is 100% a Scooby-Doo episode. You're just
Yeah.
missing the dog.
That's it. That's all we were missing was the dog. I'm like, holy shit, look at this. I'm like, it's the exact cast of Scooby-Doo. You got the stoner, the blonde, the brunette, the jock. And, all we're missing is Scooby-Doo.
I suppose
Jesus,
the nerdy
you
guy
know
was Scooby-Doo.
That it never dawned on me to look at it like that. But
Yeah.
now that you say that, I'm like, Jesus, he's right.
Yeah, totally.
I mean, Shaggy was Marty. Holy
Yeah.
crap! Even
Yep.
the hair.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the outfit, everything.
Yeah.
So the RV pulls into an ancient gas station. Holden goes inside to look for somebody, and it looks more like a taxidermy display in there than a gas station. It's looking kind of sketchy.
Redneck
And,
heaven.
Yeah, right. And then a man jumps out, and his name is Malachi. You find that out later, but he's played by Tim DeZarn, and he pops out and does a jump scare. And there's a tense exchange that takes place between the kids who just want some gas and some directions, and this old timer who's super confrontational and creepy. At this point in the movie, did you think that this guy knew anything about what they were getting themselves into? Did you think he was just a crazy redneck?
No, I just thought he was a crazy redneck. But I do like that, we find out a little later in the movie that he is playing it so aggressively because he's giving them the option to turn back. He's saying basically, if you go to this fucking cabin, you're all going to die.
Right.
So,
Right. But the interesting thing to me is that they need, well, you know what? I'm jumping ahead. I'm not going to do that. We'll talk about it later. I don't want to
Okay.
jump ahead.
yeah.
So the RV approaches the tunnel with a sheer cliff face on one side and a gorge on the other. A hawk's following them, but as it banks right, it hits an energy field and explodes into ash. The RV exits the tunnel on the other side of the energy field. They get to the cabin, and it's a fucking wreck. I mean, like, seriously, I wouldn't even go inside this thing at all.
No,
Like,
just for spiders alone.
yeah, no way. It's spider heaven in there. I'm not
Yeah.
interested at all. I
Nope.
look at that thing and I'm like, nope, I'm going to
Nope.
sleep in the RV. Thank you.
Yeah.
But
You
our
sound exactly like the girl, the blonde in the movie.
yeah,
When
she's
she
got a
saw
point.
it, she said the same thing.
She's got a point. I feel
Yeah.
her.
And quite honestly, that RV wasn't anything to speak of either. I don't think I'd want to sleep in that either.
No, honestly,
No
it was
spiders, though.
less spiders at least.
Less spiders, for sure.
So our intrepid Dana goes inside and starts looking around. And it was one of those things like when she walked in, it looked way bigger on the inside than it did on the outside. On the outside, it looks like it's one big room and that's it, not a bunch of bedrooms. and
Oh, yeah,
everything.
that long hallway. I'm like, what is this building? Like a football field long?
It's like a TARDIS.
Oh,
the
yeah.
width of a cab? It's
Yeah.
like, what the hell?
Yeah.
Yep. So Holden is looking, he goes into his room, he's looking around and he sees this gross painting hanging in his room, and he pulls it down from the wall just to discover that there's actually a mirror he can see Dana through, like he can see her in her room. And he kind of waves at her and she doesn't see him, so he realizes he can see her but she can't see him. And she starts to take her shirt off because they were going to go put on their bathing suits, and he's like, hold on, like, and I appreciate that was a gentlemanly move, and he shows everybody that this is happening. And everyone goes to look and make sure that there's not another weird window thing. Nobody finds anything, but then Holden offers to switch rooms with Dana, and she hangs the painting back up. And as grossed out as Holden was by it, she covers it with a blanket, which I don't blame either one of them because that painting was nasty. But also
Yeah, that thing
a
was
harbinger of what's coming.
That was super creepy. I mean, whoever lived there, you knew it couldn't have been a good thing just by seeing that painting.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I mean, that was horrifying.
I mean, I think at this point, between the energy field and why is there like a one-way mirror in this room, like, or do you call it a two-way mirror when it's like that? But yeah, like, why is this is a cabin in the woods, like, what's going on here? So, like, they're in a trap at this point.
Yeah. I mean, for me, this vacation is over, probably at the gas station, but at the very least, when you pull up to that cabin, I'm like, dude, it's fucking over. I'm not, this weekend is over right now. Everybody back in the fucking RV. We're going back to town. Fuck this. It's a horror movie.
God. Oh my God. And I was amiss by not mentioning that Marty is played by Fran Kranz, and he was a phenomenal actor in this movie. So I just wanted to say that.
Awesome.
All right. So let's see here. So as the camera pans back from Dana putting the blanket over that painting, we realize she's being watched through an actual camera. And they all are. You start to see multiple camera feeds on the wall in front of Sitterson and Hadley, and they're observing and reporting on the movements of the kids. They report that Holden and Dana have switched rooms. They're talking about it. And there's a conversation about chemicals that they'll be using to adjust their behaviors. They've said that they've already, have pheromones ready to release so that they'll be more, sexual. And we find out that the blonde hair dye that they used on Jules is leaching into her skin, and it's going to make her less able to think clearly. And I
don't want to mean to interrupt, but that explains her mood later in the movie when she's in front of the fireplace.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because you could see the look on Dana and Holden's face when they're on the couch as she's dancing. And I'm thinking to myself, where did this come from?
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
So I watched the movie twice. The first time I watched it to just watch it, and the second time I did the review on it. And that's when I noticed that this is the kind of movie where you really don't pick up on crucial details until you see it the second time.
And if you notice too, Dana at one point says Jules is pre-med. She's going to be a doctor.
Oh, God.
Yeah. So it's like clearly she's already affected by what they've been doing,
Exactly.
And they started this. They've been watching these kids for a while, because if they were involved with bleaching the hair, that means that they got somebody undercover in the place where she goes to get her hair done, bleached her hair with the chemicals. It's like, wow, like that's really involved,
Yeah. This was a big time setup.
Yeah. They've been watching them for a long time and making this work.
And it didn't dawn on me what Dr. Lynn was talking about with the hair dye. It didn't dawn on me what she was saying until you start to see the reactions of Jules. And it's
the behavior
like, okay,
with the truth or dare with the wolf head, and then the dancing later. Both of those things seem like they're really out of her character.
Yeah, the wolf head is something I saw the first time and just fast forwarded to the second time. Because I couldn't explain that to myself. That was just way weird.
It's odd.
I've seen this formula before with these, satire horror movies, but never done like this. And I don't think I've ever seen it done like this again. And, it was almost like I was watching two different movies that were flashing back and forth, but that were working together well. And it was cool. I mean, it saved the movie from just being another teen slasher movie, and it really elevated it to something like a hybrid movie for me. Like it was really interesting.
There was a lot of experiment type vibe in the movie.
Yeah.
Controlling the lighting, controlling the temperature of the exterior in the woods.
Yeah, you have to think. I think they're under some sort of a dome in there, because at some point Marty comes out and he looks up and there's no stars, and he says, I was expecting to see stars. So I'm assuming there's kind of like like they're in a dome, almost like when you're in the Hunger Games. There's like
this is the Truman Show.
Yeah, pretty much.
Right. Well, the minute the hawk vaporized into the invisible field, you knew something was up. That wherever they were going, it was pretty closed.
Yeah.
Yes. So, Des, this next scene is all you. The Harbinger, our friend from the gas station, Molokai, he's calling, and he tells Hadley that the lambs have gone off to the slaughter. And we get treated to a little comedy as Hadley clowns on Molokai and his religious rhetoric.
That was
I
hysterical.
freaking loved. Listen, I love these two guys. I love the way they played off each other. This phone call, I was freaking laughing out loud. This is great. This whole thing in this lab could have been another movie altogether, and I would have loved it. Like, I don't know how you would have written the plot for it, but you put all those characters in a different movie, and I love it. And I love it in this movie too. So yeah, that was freaking hilarious, man.
That's that scene when he realizes he's on speakerphone, and oh, that's my mistake. Let me take you off there, and he's still on there, and then realizes he's still on there, and they all just start cracking up. You can't help but start laughing with them because that was a funny scene.
So that phone call is like this movie. You have this one guy on one end of the phone, like, and by the darkest depths of hell in this. And then these two are like cracking
Laughing
up
at
and
him.
making, laughing at it. So,
Your
you've got
Mystery
the
Science
cabin
3000ing them for sure.
totally. And it's like, it's a small part of what this movie is where, you've got one side where it's dark and gory and bloody. And on the other side, you got people watching and laughing and drinking champagne. So
that's why it was really, it was kind of strange for me to follow because Mordecai was clearly psychotic.
Oh yeah.
And they're treating him like a psychotic. They're laughing at him, they're making fun of him. And then this is like totally not what you're expecting in this scene.
Mm-hmm.
You're not expecting that kind of comedy. You're not expecting them to make fun of the guy and then just start laughing at him because he's on speakerphone and he doesn't know it.
I mean, it was hilarious that they didn't even want to take the call at all. Like they were like, do I have to take, can you take a message? And the guy's like, I don't think
It's kind
so.
of freaking me out.
Oh, but then they just fuck with him ruthlessly, and I loved it. Yeah, great scene, great comedy.
Yep. So the teens go down to the lake, and while they're fooling around, there's people at the secret facility. The big whiteboard is up. They're taking bets. There's a mention of maintenance. There's a mention of zoology. So there's a lot happening here. There's money and slips of papers being exchanged. Truman, our new guard, seems to be really disdainful of this betting. He thinks it's gross. And he says that the game is fixed. But Hadley and Sitterman say if the kids ignore the Harbinger and then choose to go to the basement, it's all on them. So, Pat, I don't know. Do you think like betting on it's a little immoral, or do you think it's just these people have to do what they have to do to get through what they're going through? I don't know. What do you think?
It actually, I found it, I don't know. I'm not sure the right word for it. It was disturbing that they're betting on the outcome of the group. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's a betting pool. It's like Deadpool with all the names up on the board.
Yeah.
Who's going to die, how they're going to die, and by what means. And I'm like, where is this coming from? These people are treating life like it's a game show.
No, because to them it kind of was. Think about it.
So it would seem up to that point. Again, I didn't pick up on a lot of this until the second time I watched it because you're looking for things you didn't see the first time.
Mm-hmm.
Connections in the beginning of a movie that become relevant later in the movie.
Yeah, I know Des said that he paused the whiteboard so he could get a really good look at everything on the list.
Yeah, and there were 3 monsters that stood out to me that I wanted to see that I never got to see. Maybe I saw one, I'm not sure. One was sexy witches. I was like, sexy witches? Huh. The other one that I thought was just freaking great was Kevin.
Kevin.
Kevin. What is Kevin? Who is Kevin? How does Kevin kill?
Yeah, I think they do mention it at some point. But I just read about it. It wasn't that it's mentioned in the thing, but.
And then there was the sugar plum fairy.
Oh, is that up there too?
Yeah.
Now, see, these are things that would. Now, I did a lot of rewinding so I could watch a scene again and again, but that didn't happen until the bloodshed came.
Right.
I wouldn't even have considered pausing to look at the board to see all the different kinds of ways they were going to die.
Freaking hilarious, man. Some of these monsters that were up there, I was just like, oh, this is great. Fucking
But I had
really
zombies.
Smart.
No. The zombies are totally different. These were redneck pain torture zombies. Totally different.
Totally different, dude.
Totally
different.
I just looked it up, and Kevin is a normal human, but he's like basically a serial killer.
Nice.
So, and The funny thing is that I will mention it later, but I couldn't figure out, you know how I'm jumping ahead again. I'm not going to do that. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Let's not jump ahead.
Moving on.
Moving on.
Moving on.
So the party gets going in both the lab and the cabin. There's drinking happening in both places. Marty dares Jewel to make out with the stuffed wolf head, and we're just going to jump over that because it's very weird.
Well, wait, I got a funny fact.
Oh,
They
do you?
actually-
Okay.
Here it comes. I knew that had to be something.
They actually put powdered sugar on the wolf's tongue so she would make out with it like that.
Was it just me, or did anybody notice that the tongue was moving?
Yeah, because it was made from like silicone, and it was
Yeah.
just kind of placed in there, so it was moving. But
That was
I think
disturbing.
the first time I watched it, I kept expecting it to bite her tongue off.
Well, I expected nothing to happen, but I thought it was an effective shot because it made me nervous. Like her
Right.
face that close to that thing's mouth.
Yes.
Even though I knew it wasn't going to bite her, it definitely gave me some suspense, and I thought it was a good scene.
Yeah. It's uncomfortable to me, but that's probably what they were going for. So mission
Yeah.
accomplished.
Yeah.
Yeah, because when I saw that, I'm looking at her going, what the hell?
Yeah. If she's the doctor, I'm saying, do you got anybody else on tonight?
So Jules, having done her dare, gets to give Dana a dare. And suddenly the cellar door blows open. And I love this that Kurt goes, oh, it's probably just the wind. It's like it's the cellar and there's no wind. Like
Yeah.
Yeah,
And-
I mean, how many ghost stories have you seen where something opened or closed and some schmo says the same thing every time? Oh, it
Yeah.
must have been the wind.
mhm.
Well, wait, is that like a prerequisite for any kind of a horror, ghost, monster type movie? Someone
I have a
has to
feeling
say
that's
that?
why they did that, though, is because it's so typical of people to say it when it's obviously not the wind.
yeah.
So
There was a lot of things that were very stereotypical, like that scene with the door opening.
yes.
I just recently watched The Conjuring,
did you?
and it was the same thing. A door slammed shut, and some naive, skeptical guy must have been a draft. And I'm like, I don't know many drafts that blow up from a
Yeah.
basement.
No, and Marty says as much. Marty's
Yeah.
like, dude, in what universe is that fucking possible?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
He
So
might
of
have been a
course,
stoner, but he caught on to quite a few things.
yes.
Hey, listen to Marty. None of this would have happened.
Oh, basically, he was what's the girl in Aliens? The Ripley. He was
Yes.
the Ripley of this movie. Like, just listen to the Ripley.
Yeah, totally.
So
Trust the
Jules
Ripley.
trust the Ripley. The Ripley is telling you don't bring this guy who just had a face hugger on him back into the ship, but you don't listen to her. No, now you're all dead.
Well, you wouldn't have a story.
Yeah, true enough. It just would have been them just flying happily back to home.
Yeah,
but-
exactly. Where's the fun in that?
So at this point, Jules dares Dana to go down into the basement. It's very dark. She's using a flashlight to look around. There's creepy old dolls. There's photos. There's toys. She gets startled when her light suddenly falls on a creepy picture that's very close to her face. Everyone rushes down to see if she's okay. She is, but now everyone's entranced by the weird things in the basement, and people start picking things up and touching them. And Marty's saying, let's all go back upstairs because I think that this is creepy.
I dare you to go back upstairs.
Yeah, yeah. I dare
That
you.
was
Let's go
hysterical.
back upstairs. He's the only one that's not touching shit. He's the only one that's saying, let's go back upstairs.
Although he does get attracted to an item, he starts touching the film. Now,
Yes.
that is what I was going to say. Kevin is called by the film.
Oh,
So I don't know what's on the film, but that if you watch that movie, it brings Kevin. So just so you know.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. Cool.
Well, see, this is the review. The podcast was. I was going to have some questions answered that I couldn't figure out,
Mhm.
and seeing the movie the second time, you put together what the basement has to do with the movie.
Yes.
Mhm.
And when I'm watching it the second time and they go into the basement, I start noticing the artifacts that are down there.
Yes,
The
like the box
dolls
with the
with the-
ballerina in it.
Yeah.
The ballerina, exactly, is the same thing you find in the stable later in the movie.
Mhm, mhm.
And the dolls with the faces, the porcelain faces.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. You see them later too. Yeah, there's something that that relates to a monster later in the movie in that entire basement, which is really cool. But I kept saying to myself, like, what was the film? Like, I never saw anything that was the film. And when I looked up who Kevin was, it said the film would have brought Kevin. And I was like, oh, okay.
That explains it. And only the second time I watched it do I realize each individual there is touching or interested in a particular item. And the camera went from one to the other, to the other, to the other.
Yep.
Until it stopped on Dana and the diary.
Yep.
And when she started reading the diary and she says, hey, everyone, listen to this. Bang. Everybody stops what they're doing. They go over to Dana. And that's how the choice was made.
Yep.
Because of the family and what the family was and what they did and who they were and how fucked up they were.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's where the movie goes from that point on.
Yep. So if they had watched the movie, they would have gotten Kevin. If the Jules had put on that necklace that was on the bride, they probably would have gotten like some crazy ass bride. And then,
that's
of course,
the other one I couldn't
merman.
figure out. I couldn't find the connection with the necklace to the stable.
Yeah, I'm sure if I looked at it, I probably could figure it out. But yeah, there's also, of course, there was the merman. There was the guy with the pain box with the things in his face that kind of look like Pinhead.
Yeah.
So yeah, there was but we're getting ahead of ourselves.
This kind of reminded me of the roof scene in Ghostbusters where your destroyer has been chosen. Hey, we didn't think of anything. I'm sorry, it just popped into my head.
What just popped, Ray?
Oh God.
So
Pat,
Dana
I wish we were talking about that tonight.
We'll do it eventually
in the future, because that's going to be another beauty.
Okay.
So Dana finds a book and recounts a horrifying tale she finds inside. And it sounds like a demented religious cult family from the late 1800s. There's Latin at the end of the diary that Marty begs her to not read, but she reads it anyways.
I draw the line. It's speaking in Latin. This is where I draw the line.
And
Marty
of course,
was, without a question, a funny character. I
loved him.
The first time I watched the movie, I'm like, he's about the only character that I could really, other than relate to.
Yeah.
He was the comic relief.
Yes.
The lines he said, when he's in the basement and he's totally shitting himself, nobody wants to leave there. I dare you all to leave the basement. I draw the line. Don't read the Latin.
Yeah. Yeah. Great.
Oh my goodness.
Never read the Latin in a horror movie. That's got to be one of the rules.
You would think. You would think they would have caught on by now.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I mean, that's my credo. I live my life by that law.
So, Des, would you read from the book at all?
No. No. I mean, give me a break. It's the same as the Mummy. You don't read from the Book of the Dead. I mean, you don't do it.
How is it that you can translate a language and not know what the hell they're saying?
Yeah, don't do it.
If it says, don't read this aloud, how can you read it aloud knowing what you're saying and continue to read it aloud?
As they say in The Mummy, you mustn't read from the book.
Yeah. Apparently they didn't see The Mummy.
Oh my goodness. So back at the lab, our winner is announced. Zombie redneck torture family.
Nice.
So the family from the book
different than zombies.
Totally.
Yeah. So not a zombie redneck torture family. The family from the book has returned from the grave and they're advancing on the cabin. Those that won the plot are rejoicing and everyone else is groaning and hoping to do better next year. Hadley's
the intern was happy though.
Yeah.
Yes,
exactly.
the intern was
The intern split. He was thrilled.
So Hadley is pissed that it wasn't Merman this year. He's been really rooting for Merman.
He wants to see a merman.
Oh, he's gonna see a merman.
Ironically.
So Lynn and Truman are watching the feeds and discussing how the things that they're dealing with come from old magic and God. So this is kind of the first time you get a little like, oh, okay, like this isn't just like a government experiment. Like there's something else happen at work here. She says that you kind of get used to it. And Truman says, should you? Like, maybe you shouldn't get used to it. Maybe you should, keep a little humanity here.
Truman's the only one that doesn't treat everything that's going on like it was some kind of a reality game show.
Yeah.
They're talking about life and death and everybody's betting on it and taking it nonchalantly. And obviously the new guy can't quite accept that.
And I don't blame him. I mean, he's very much taking it seriously and nobody else is. I mean, they're taking it seriously, but in a different way, I guess.
Yeah. I recognize Truman from Jerry Maguire. He was the professional football player that Maguire was.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, which one of the engineers, the one with the glasses, which I can't remember their names.
That one is Sitterman.
Yeah.
Sitterman. He was one of the 3 actors that I recognized from another movie. Obviously, Chris Hemsworth. And Amy Acker I knew from Person of Interest. I picked her voice out of a crowd. That was easy. But Sinnerman was also in The Corps.
Yeah.
He was the general in The Corps.
That's right.
I never saw that.
Oh, good movie. I enjoyed it.
You never saw The Corps?
No, I didn't.
Oh, we're going to have to do that one then.
It's not her jam.
So there's a conversation between Sitterman and Hallie indicating that pretty much everything in the basement was a trigger for one of those monsters, as we were just discussing. And there's also a brief camera scene, just like a feed of what's happening in the Japanese faction. It's a bunch of little schoolgirls screaming and running from a ghost. So there's your ghost, Pat.
Oh yeah.
I think that's what was kind of strange. They're showing the different situations around the world, or scenarios, or whatever they would call them, and how these things were failing. And I'm like, well, what does that have to do with what's going on below the cabin?
Yeah, it just takes some time for that to catch up.
There was a lot of confusion right up until the last 20 minutes of the movie.
No, I mean, at this point, I realized that there was a competition of some sort going on. And, to win, your monsters had to kill all the victims. And, it was country versus country. Now, obviously, I didn't understand what the end game was or why they were doing it. But, I understood that the kids in the cabin were United States's, hand in this game. So, yeah, I knew that they were connected to this, obviously.
Yeah. So the kids are back upstairs and Jules is dancing sexy. And of course, this is due to the drugs that the lab has given her and, whatever has sunk through her scalp into her brain. Marty sees that something odd is happening with people's behavior. And after Jules and Kurt leave to mess around, Marty decides to go read his book with pictures.
Yeah.
And Dana and Holden talk about the book, the journal, some more. Outside, Kurt and Jules are being watched by the lab. They're dosed with a pheromone mist, and the lab is watching as they start messing around. And they say it's important that certain things happen, like the booby shot to, quote unquote, keep the customer happy, and that there's a lot at stake. I'm not quite sure how somebody downstairs knows that's happening, but they do mention it. So
yeah.
Des, that's the age-old rule in scary movies. Don't split up and don't have sex, and they broke both of them. So you kind of see what's coming, right?
Yeah, they broke both. I mean, we learned all the rules in the original Scream movie. Apparently, these kids have never seen The Mummy. They've never seen Scream. They should have got out to the movies more. Maybe they'll still be alive.
Or as simple as Friday the 13th. Because is it just me? Or does the drunk jock and the slutty girl always wander off from the group just before something nasty happens to them?
Mm-hmm.
Always. Yeah. Monsters hate sluts and jocks.
So it would seem.
Monsters hate sluts and jocks.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Okay.
So we get our first interaction here with our zombies, our torture pain zombie family. Kurt and Jules are messing around when one of the zombies puts a knife right through her hand, and Kurt attacks him trying to save her, and he gets a knife in his back for his troubles, and then a bear trap to the face. The zombies use the bear trap to hook onto the back of Jules and drags her away while the others restrain Kurt, and the zombies behead our beloved Jules, and that's
in a very original way. I had to make a note of that.
Yeah.
I don't remember in any slasher movie, and I've seen a few, I don't think I've ever seen anyone beheaded by a wood saw like that.
Yeah.
That was definitely original.
Yeah, it was something. And I was okay with not seeing it like play out in actual, like you just see the blood spray and you know what happened. Like you don't.
This movie is about.
Be an idiot not to know what happened.
Yeah,
and that's not what this movie is about. This movie is not about egregious gore. You're going to get plenty of blood, but it's going to be fun. And I appreciated that about this movie. It knew what it was.
Right.
Now I'm gonna remind you of that last line. Not about egregious blood, when we get into the last
No,
40 or 40 minutes of the
No.
movie.
I said not
Because-
about egregious gore.
Yeah, he still means gore.
Okay.
Yeah, no.
I'll
No,
have to-
blood and gore are two different things. Come on.
no, they're not.
So
You say gore, you expect a bloodbath.
No.
You can't have bloodbath and gore without having the other. They go hand in hand.
Yeah, depending on how it's presented to you. I mean, this was presented to me in a comical way at the end of this movie, but
Right.
we'll get there when we get there.
right. So back at the lab, Sittner is praying. And he says, "This we offer in humility and fear for the blessed peace of your eternal slumber as it ever was." And Hadley opens a shutter, pulls a lever, clockwork gears start turning, and blood starts to drain down into a funnel. And at this point, we only see some kind of beveled stone. We're not really sure where the blood's going. But the camera switches us back to the cabin. But this is our first hint, of why these people are doing what they're doing, that these deaths are some kind of a sacrifice, even though we're not really done why we don't really understand why it's being done in like a quote unquote horror movie format.
Yeah.
You understand that something's happening here.
I was just glad that this wasn't like a bunch of rich billionaire elites, sitting around a table, drinking the blood from goblets. I was like, oh, that would have been so cheap. And it wasn't that, thank God.
Yes.
No, there was enough cheesiness in certain scenes. You didn't need to add to it.
Yeah.
So Marty's reading his picture book when he hears a woman's voice saying she's going to go for a walk. He hears it and he asks the voice what it wants. Like, it freaks him out. He says he's not a puppet and he's the boss of his own brain. And then he says, "I'm going to go for a walk."
After he hears the whisper again, go for a walk.
I love that.
Dana and Holden are making out. Marty teases them on the way out the door. That's a husband's bulge. And
Great line.
That was a great callback. There's no question. And the look on Dana's face was priceless.
Oh my God. When he gets outside, he decides to relieve himself, and the viewers can see that somebody's coming up behind him. It's behind him. It's a little blurry. You're not really sure what's going on. However,
From shadow to light.
However, the jump scare doesn't come from whoever's coming up behind him. It comes as Kurt runs into him, knocking him down, then clotheslines the zombie that was coming up behind Marty.
That was so awesome.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that
was
was also a little, indicate like a little change up of what, like, normally you expect the jump scare to come from behind,
Yeah.
Of course, you expect that because you see the ghost sneaking up on him.
Mm-hmm.
You're not expecting off camera to get charged at the front of them.
Mm-hmm.
So that was good for me, because one of the things I like about a slasher or a gore or a ghost story is something completely unexpected happening.
Mm-hmm.
Some things you expect because you've seen it in the past. And there's a scene with Marty in his room that if you didn't know what was going to happen, then you clearly have not watched enough movies.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Agreed.
This movie never scared me. Never. There was never a scene that scared me or creeped me out. Nothing. So there's a similar scene to this kind of, I mean, not really, but sort of, in a movie called It's Sinister, right? It's creepy. It's scary. This movie didn't give me any of that, but I was fine with it because I didn't want that from this movie.
From the moment Jules was stabbed by the zombie and beheaded, it definitely was nothing more than a monster movie.
And I had fun with all these monsters and all these kills and all these scenes. They were shot great. The monsters all look great. It was a fun ride for me. The whole movie was a fun ride for me.
Right. So they get back inside, Kurt and Marty, and Dana, what's going on? Kurt says Jules is gone. She says, "I'm refusing to leave without Jules." She opens the door and there's a gigantic hulking zombie man who throws Jules' head at her. So somehow they managed to get the door closed again. He's so big, I don't know how they got the door closed, but they managed to get the door closed again. And Kurt says, "We're going to barricade the cabin and we're all going to stay together." And that's thinking outside the horror movie box here. And Hadley goes, we're going to split them up.
Yep.
And I thought that was very interesting that, Kurt's like, "We're going to stay together because we need, safety in numbers." And Hadley's like, "Oh, no.
That's when you realize that it's basically, it's much more scientific experiment wise, because with just a flip of a switch, his entire mental state changes from staying together, which makes perfect sense, to let's split up so we can all get killed separately.
Yeah.
How that happens.
I mean, the deck is completely stacked against these kids. And that's what Truman was saying earlier. Like, Citizen's like, oh, if they go down to the basement, it's on them. It's like, well, you're dosing them with chemicals. You're changing their personalities. It's you really are. They have no
Setting
fighting
them up.
chance. Yeah.
Yeah, they're bending the
setting
rules.
them up to fail, period.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I thought it was kind of, I don't know if cheesy is the right word, but somehow when Dana said, I'm not leaving without Jules, when she opens the door and the zombie standing in front of her, I expected it.
Mm-hmm.
When he threw the head to her, I expected it, because I mean, the scene was written like you have to know something's happening. I'm not leaving without Jules. Open the door, zombie.
Yeah.
Well, as soon as he threw the head, you had to know that was coming.
Yeah.
You had to know.
Of course.
So
well, there's Jules. Here you go. You can leave.
now you can leave because you got her. So yeah, as Des said, the lab is not having it. They release that gas. It changes Kurt's mind on a dime. And he says, now we should split up. And of course, everyone's like, yeah, okay. Like nobody's really thinking in their right mind at this point. And probably there's enough chemicals in all of them that they can't make any decisions wisely.
But again, Marty had the foresight to know that was such a bad idea.
Yeah.
Splitting up.
Well, Marty has been smoking the super dope that makes him immune to the drugs.
Well, don't jump ahead.
Oh, sorry. All right, erase that from everyone's memories.
No, but that is true. They said at some point, the girl from Chemicals, Lynn, says we laced his stash, but he must have had something else that he was smoking that they didn't know about.
Correct.
So at this point, one of the zombies breaks a window in the room that they're in. So everyone makes a run for their room. Instead of all staying, together, they go into their separate rooms, and the lab locks the doors. So everybody's locked inside their bedroom.
Now, mind you, the first thing I noticed when those doors slam shut, nothing closes the windows.
No, nothing.
And they're on the first floor.
Yes.
So what exactly would be the point of locking doors when these people can go out the windows?
A zombie outside. You're not going to go outside the window.
Yeah. And also, when they push the front door shut and the giant zombies on the other side, it's like, so they shut this balsa wood door with a rusty little lock with 4 little rusty screws.
And he can't manage to get through it.
Yeah, no, he's going right through that door.
Yes, absolutely. So when Marty goes to close his window because he realizes his window is open and there's zombies outside, he breaks his lamp and he sees something and he's like, what is that? He realizes it's a little camera and he thinks he's on a reality TV show. He thinks that this is kind of like a joke.
I love it.
This is the scene that I was referring to.
Yeah, like why would you lean against that window, you fool?
Oh, yeah, exactly. I mean, he's holding the microphone. I'm on a reality show.
Well, because now he thinks there's no danger. He thinks this is like an Ashton Kutcher, scare show.
Punked.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he thinks that these are actors and him and his friends are all being, filmed in a reality scare show.
The moment he backs up, I mean, he's not like directly in front of the window. He's looking at the wire and the camera. Yeah. He literally takes a step back to get closer to the window.
Yeah.
And then my head goes, oh, he's so going out that window.
Oh, yeah.
And then bang, right out the window.
Yep. Yeah. So one of the Buckners grabs him, pulls him out the window. There's a small skirmish and he gets dragged away. You don't really see the kill, but like I kind of figured they didn't really show you Jules's kill, so they're not doing that in this movie. So I like, okay.
Well, you got to think he's dead. He took a knife in the back.
Yeah, I thought he was dead.
Even if it didn't hit his spine, that knife went deep.
Yeah,
it's gonna hit a lung. It's gonna hit a heart.
Yeah,
he's being dragged away. You see the blood splashing up into the air. Him screaming. As far as you know.
You
Marty's
hear the
dead.
Sound of stabbing, so
and
he's dead.
And Kurt took some really deep stabs from that huge knife too, and he seems to be okay. People are brushing off these mortal wounds without a problem.
Yeah, that was very difficult to accept.
Yep.
Yes,
I mean, Kurt yanks that blade out of his back, and what kind of an angle was that thing in his back? Because you got to think he must have done some wicked damage yanking that thing out.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go
Well,
ahead.
again, like it is with most horror movies, you have to suspend your belief a little bit, you know?
Yeah.
Well, yeah,
A
absolutely.
lot bit.
A little bit.
A little bit.
So we see another shot of the gears turning, blood filling the stone shape. And there's an earthquake at this point, and it's both in the lab and the cabin. And Pat, this is the first time we get a hint that the lab and the cabin are in the same place.
Yes.
Like, because initially I thought maybe like the lab was like somewhere far away. Like they don't have to be like right on top of them. But when that earthquake happens and you see it in both the cabin and in the lab, you know that they're relatively close.
Absolutely.
Yep.
All right.
Agreed. Yeah, I never until that point, I never put one and one together. I thought this was all being done remote from miles away.
Yeah, that's kind of what I thought too. So Dana is trying to barricade her room when one of the zombies tries to grab her through the window. Holden breaks that mirror that was in between their rooms and pulls her through. They move the bed to barricade the window and find another trapdoor down to the basement underneath the bed. They escape that way and tell Kurt to meet them down there. They're looking for a way out when Holden is snagged by the bear trap and one of the Buckner zombies tries to drag him up and out of the basement. Dana attacks with one of the weapons laying about and ends up saving Holden, even though, you know, he took a bear trap to the back. So that's also pretty intense.
Yeah, but the bear trap doesn't do.
One.
Yeah, the bear trap does no damage to anybody.
How is that possible?
He just has like some bloody marks on his shoulder.
You have half a bear trap on a chain being swung like some kind of medieval weapon, and it's digging deep enough to pull people across the ground, and yet people get up like it was an insect bite.
Yes, nobody is injured by the giant bear trap to the back.
And I have to make comment, when Dana uses the crowbar and drives it right through the zombie's head, the zombie didn't die. That annoyed me. Okay, if you're gonna use zombies, you gotta follow the zombie rules.
Yes.
You take out the head, the zombie dies. Period.
Yeah,
There's no coming back from that.
But these aren't zombies. These are zombie redneck pain-loving creatures.
They're zombies, damn it.
Yeah.
You kill the head, you kill the zombie. That's
100%.
the rule.
It is the rule. It is the rule.
That is the rule. And going into the next step, she's got the knife in her hand. She's stabbing it multiple times. And then the engineers have to take control of the scene. They flip a switch and a little electrical shock makes her drop the knife. How is it she doesn't know what made her drop the damn knife?
Yeah.
If you're holding something and you get an electrical shock from it, you're gonna know it.
Yeah.
How do you not react to it? How do you just drop the knife and then walk away?
Yeah, I'm going for the knife again. It just saved your life. I want that knife.
Yeah.
Unhappy about that. That scene was just there were too many things that were like, oh, come on. That's what I caught myself saying. I don't know how many times. Oh, come on. How can you not do that?
Oh, shit.
Kurt appears in the doorway and he yells at them to come on. They escape through a bulkhead and Dana asks about Marty and Kurt tells her that the zombies got him. And they get into the RV and they drive off and there's an ominous bloody handprint on the RV door. So Des, you know it's not a clean escape for our would-be heroes.
Oh, you see the bloody
100%.
handprint, you know nothing good is coming of that.
Yeah, there's a murderous zombie redneck
Somewhere
on board.
in the RV. You have to know that.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Why it took so long to appear was kind of mystifying. I mean, obviously,
I fully agree with you that I don't understand how they didn't notice that gigantic thing in there all that time, but
Well,
I digress.
like from True Lies, maybe it was sleepy.
Oh my God. So back in Japan, the school children have defeated the evil ghost that was let loose upon them. And Cinder lets his displeasure be known by screaming, "Fuck you, fuck you, fuck you," at the happy little Japanese schoolgirls.
How can you not kill 5 little girls?
That was pretty juvenile. Fuck
I
you,
love
fuck
it.
you, fuck you. And another thing, how does a classroom of Japanese schoolgirls manage to do what they did? Seriously? You've got some kind of a specter that's scaring the shit out of them. And the next time you see them, they're singing and things are glowing and a frog comes out of the bowl. I'm like, what the fuck?
Oh, I thought it was clever. You know, they're Japanese, they're into Zen and stuff. I don't know if this is true. This sounds like such horse shit.
You
Forget
sound
it.
like you're trying to justify the scene because I'm laughing my ass off.
You
I mean, I'm
know,
sure that was a certain kind of ghost. Like if I looked it up, I'm sure that there's like a Japanese like folk tale
Yes.
about that ghost, and
that's what I'm
you
saying.
know,
They
Yeah.
use a specific name.
Yeah.
So and so is now the evil is contained. So and so will now live in the frog.
Yeah.
Right.
So I'm guessing if you did a search on the name
yeah,
of the evil, that might actually be more relevant to the story. But you're not told that when you're seeing this.
Yeah.
So you're left to sit there scratching your head going, what the fuck did I just say?
I kind of picked it up though. I'm like, these are smart little Japanese girls that knew the whatever the little child rhyme was they were doing that puts the naughty spirit into the frog. That puts Edwina back in the bowl. Man with two brains.
yes.
Okay.
No, that wasn't Man with Two Brains.
Oh no. Yeah.
Back in
Put-
bowl.
yeah.
Back in bowl.
Yeah,
No,
that's Man with Two Brains. Back in bowl. Put Edwina back in bowl.
I don't think so, but okay.
Moving on.
Moving on.
Please.
So they disclose this is where we find out that Marty's weed's been doused with chemicals, and it should have had him incoherent almost completely the entire time that they were on this trip. And instead, he almost figured them out. So they're like, he was a wild card, but they're like, well, he's dead, so whatever. And Lynn's yelling at them from her office saying, you're humanity's last hope if the ancients rise, and Sittner cuts her off. So you really know that there's something going on here. Hadley is panicking because the planned cave-in at the tunnel hasn't happened, and the RV is heading straight for it. Sittner runs to try to figure out what's happening. The RV makes it to the tunnel, but Sittner is able to blow it right before they get through, and a rock slide happens, and they have to back out. The rocks are, showering down. They get out, and they're just like, that's it. We can't get across this gorge. They see the road that will lead them away, but they can't get to it. And
Yeah.
Kurt decides he's going to jump the gorge on his dirt bike. And he makes
Hell
the
yeah.
jump. Yeah, he makes
I
the
knew
jump.
you were going to react like that. I knew it. As soon as I saw the scene,
Yeah,
I'm like, oh, Des is going to like this.
Yeah, he makes the jump and all looks good until he hits that old energy field and falls to his death.
So the listeners don't know, but I raced motocross for years. I saw the dirt bike immediately and I was like, oh, awesome. I hope this, comes into play in the movie, which it did. This jump is freaking awesome. It's so ridiculous. You see Chris Hemsworth, like, I don't know, blue screened or whatever it was. He's like 1,000 feet in the air, jumping the Grand Canyon.
Jumping
And how
Snake
did he get
Gorge.
the lift? How
There's
did he get
no-
that kind of lift?
Thank
He
you,
went
Pat.
off the edge of the cliff and he was going up.
I didn't see the freestyle ramp set up anywhere.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I was glad to see him hit the energy field and be, as you said, bang, 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 bang down.
And the first 3 times you saw him hit the field, you could actually hear him. Ah, ah, ah. I thought that was well, that's what made me think of the Roadrunner and the Coyote. Whenever the Coyote goes down, he's like hitting the side of the damn field and he's making sounds the whole way down.
Yeah, or like in Austin Powers, when the guy goes down, he burns him in the chair. I'm down here. I'm burnt really badly.
But I'm still alive.
But I'm still alive. Now there's a dog eating my leg. Go ahead.
Just so you know, Edwina Back and Bowl is from All of Me, not from Man with Two Legs.
Oh, yes. All of me.
I had to check it up because it was killing me.
All of me, a cinematic jewel.
So at this point, we see the gears are turning again. Another stone sign is being filled with blood. And this time you can actually see what the sign is. And it's like a man with like a javelin. And it's like, oh,
that's the jock.
Yes.
There you go.
Yep. And it's an athlete, a jock. And you're catching on pretty quickly that there's different archetypes. The fool, because they keep calling Marty the fool.
Yeah.
The fool, the jock, the good time girl, the nerd, and the virgin.
Yep.
So after Kurt's death, Dana is starting to think that Marty was right. There's puppeteers here working with them. Obviously they've seen now the energy field with their own eyes. They understand that this is not just zombies attacking. There's like there's something else much bigger at play here.
Yeah, Dana knows that they're not going to escape at this point. She knows they're trapped.
Yeah. So Holden tells her to get back to the RV, and he starts driving back to the cabin. She's saying, you know, what's the point of going back to the cabin? He says, I'm going to drive past it because there's going to be another way out on the other side. And she's saying, you're missing the point completely. There is no way out. You know, we're trapped in here. And he's trying to keep her calm while driving, but he's interrupted by a blade through the back of his neck.
Nice.
Now, I need to make comment on this because as we're leading up and they're talking to each other, she's looking at him.
Yes.
How in the world are you looking in that direction and not see the zombie behind him? I mean, as soon as the blade in the close-up goes through his head, the next scene, the camera is further back. And you see the entire zombie, you see the driver's seat, and you see Holden. She's looking that way. She doesn't see this damn thing come up behind him.
And you got to think it probably smells. Like,
and what took it so long? If it's been in there since they gone in the damn RV,
was he hiding in the bathroom in the RV? Like, did he fit in the bathroom? Like, was he just standing there the whole time? Like,
taking a dump.
and he's just casual about it. He's like, yeah, I'm not going to take out this Holden guy. I want to see this motorcycle jump first.
There you go.
What the hell?
Oh, boy. So dead, Holden falls on the steering wheel and the RV plummets off the road and into water. You know, I think we all were waiting for this kill to happen from the time they've gotten into the RV until now. So it was kind of
glad that handprint was a good clue.
Yeah, they finally got it done. So Dana's still alive and she escapes. Father Buckner grabs her foot, trying to hold on to her, but she escapes him and swims to the surface. Sittner and Hadley are already celebrating because the virgin, Dana, her death is optional. So she can either live or die as long as she suffers, and she has. So the ritual is considered complete, and they're all celebrating.
Until the bat phone rings.
So back in the woods, Dana makes it to the dock and is about to really break down. You know, you can see she's about to like just start crying, and suddenly there's the bear trap. It almost takes her head off.
Again.
I could have sworn she stabbed this guy like 50 times, but you know, they're zombies, so okay.
Yeah, again, the zombie rule, damn it.
Yep.
Yeah.
You take out the head, you take out the zombie. That rule didn't apply. And if you're gonna make a movie like this and you're gonna use characters that people are familiar with, you gotta follow the rules. It's that simple. Or you totally ruin the entire effect of the zombie.
No,
there
because
was no winning against these things.
No, because Sittner, what's her name? What's his name? Sitterson. Sitterson already explained these aren't regular zombies. These are zombie redneck pain lovers. They don't follow the same rules as zombies. These are hybrid zombies. They love crowbars to the head.
That's a stretch for me. Yeah, it's a stretch for me. I'm expecting a zombie to die when you put a crowbar through its head.
Nope, they went out of their way to tell us that these are not zombies.
Apparently so.
Okay.
Yeah. So I really felt like this next scene where the party's happening in the lab and this incredibly brutal attack of Dana's happening in the background, and literally no one is paying attention because nobody gives a shit.
It's awesome.
And it took an awful long time. Did you realize that? From the moment that thing showed up through the entire party celebration, boy, that tell you, man, that zombie had a lot of fun because he sure took his time throwing her around and
he was thrashing
her up here and there. I mean, how long does it take a zombie to kill somebody?
Yeah, he was banging her off the post.
Yeah. So the lab workers are partying. Sitterson is talking to people that the people that should have made the tunnel explode on time. And they're like, you know, it wasn't our fault. You know, there was a power surge from upstairs. And this alarms him right off the bat. And he says, what do you mean upstairs? You know, so obviously upstairs is where the cabin is.
Yeah.
And they're like, what do you mean there's a power surge from up there? At this point, that very angry looking red phone starts ringing. The music gets turned off and Hadley answers it. And it's clear he is a little cowed by whoever he's speaking to and alarmed. And it appears something didn't work out right. And it didn't work as they thought it had. He asks which one, and we're returned to the dock immediately. She's still getting her ass whooped by this dude. He's just about to kill her. And there's our friend Marty.
Loved
and
it.
that pissed me off so much.
Well-
So much. I mean, it was bad enough when there were just certain things in this movie that just tipped me into the I'm angry part. Chris Hemsworth with the flip of the switch from being let's stay together to no, let's separate. Okay, that was annoying. But Marty coming back and surviving that attack, yeah, that just I couldn't accept it. It was no good for me.
Here's my thought on it. So I thought earlier in the movie, I said to myself, Marty's going to be the final survivor. And I was hoping that I was right because he was my favorite character. And then he died and it went, shit, he died. That sucks. And then he came back. I said, yeah, he's back. I don't care if I saw him die for sure. He's back. And I just wanted Marty back.
You just liked him too much. You didn't care if he was actually should have been dead or not. You just okay, Marty's back.
I just wanted him back. And he was back, and I was happy he was back. But I agree with you, Pat. I was like, bullshit. He fucking died.
Exactly. That's when you just want to call, okay, bullshit. I call bullshit.
Yeah. But after seeing, 15 bear traps in the back, do nothing, multiple giant blades through the shoulders and chests and nothing, I'm like, I started to literally question if the killing was real. I'm like, are these like phantom killings or?
Is this like a Fantasy Island episode?
Exactly. I'm like, I don't understand the rules in this universe, but whatever.
Yeah, when the zombie doesn't die, the rules don't apply.
I'm not gonna let the zombie thing go.
He's not. That's
not letting it go, man.
I love it. Don't. He's the podcaster with an opinion.
So they defeat the zombie for the moment and return to the cabin where Marty jumps in a grave. And Dana's like, why are you jumping into a grave? She hesitates, even though that girl zombie's closing in on her from behind. And he's like, come on. And she jumps in. And you realize it's not a grave at all. It looks kind of like a concrete basement.
Now I have to wonder, maybe I missed something. How the fuck did he find that?
Well, I think that's where the zombie dragged him to.
Yes, 100%.
Okay.
That's why the zombie is down there in pieces.
Yeah.
All right.
The zombie dragged him down there.
Okay. That isn't one thing explained because there were many things that I had to wait until this podcast to have explained to me because either I was too stoned, like Marty, or I was just missing something outright.
Yeah, because he actually says I had to dismember that zombie.
With the trowel. Yes, that's right.
Yes.
With the trowel.
And at this point, he started digging around in the walls because he realized this is weird. This isn't a grave. It's a concrete room. And he realizes there's an elevator and there's maintenance panels. And he understands somebody has sent the zombies up there to kill him.
So
I have never seen a stoner be that tech savvy.
But he was smart through the whole movie.
That was a huge contradiction. Marty was way too stoned to know what the fuck he was doing with that access panel.
Hey, we don't know. Marty might have been studying like general engineering in college. Wasn't told
Marty
to
looks
us.
like he's been homeless for the last 6 months.
All right. So I want to say something about this. So at this point in the movie, this is about 55 minutes in. And I know because I actually clicked the timer. I'm like, oh my God, how much longer is in this movie?
I've done that 3 times during the movie.
Yeah, so I clicked it on. I'm like, oh my God, there's another 34 minutes in this movie. I'm like, holy shit. So, and it's funny because this is where everything changed for me. This last 34 minutes in this movie is literally, for me, a 5 rewatch movie. Like, this is fucking cinematic gold. I love the last 34 minutes.
Again.
I know, but I'm just saying, because this is like literally where the movie turned for me. The first 55 minutes, it's good. It's fun. It's kind of what I expected with the extra added bonus of all the, tech stuff. But it still was like, it was falling flat. And it was starting to get a little old by this point. I'm like, all right, I'm almost done.
Right.
But I did not expect what I was about to get over the next 34 minutes, and fucking blew my mind. I loved it. Well, so go ahead.
Once, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to step in.
No, go ahead.
Once the camera pans back and you see all the cubes shifting
Oh,
around.
yeah. Don't jump ahead.
with
Don't
all
jump
the-
ahead.
Oh, I didn't realize I was getting that far ahead.
Yeah, don't
Yeah.
jump ahead. So
Never mind.
that's okay. We're gonna get there.
Erase your
So-
memories.
What?
Pat, take another toke. You'll be all set.
Okay.
So Marty Short gets the circuit board. He says to Dana, like, we should get on this elevator and see where it goes. And she's like, I don't know if that's a good idea. And he's like, what else are we gonna do? And he's got a great point because she also already knows there's no way out of where they are. So the only way to go out is through at this point. And she's like, all right. And she gets on the elevator with him and he jumps down with her and it starts moving. And at first you're kind of like, okay, what's happening here? It's dark in every place but the elevator. And suddenly a werewolf like attacks from behind them, but can't get through the glass to get at them.
Fucking
And
yeah.
Yeah, as this elevator is moving, because it's moving down and sideways, it's not just moving down or up. We see a ghost, we see a little ballerina with a tooth face, we see the scary looking man holding the music box that was in the cellar. And Dana realizes when she sees the box in the guy's hand, they chose what came to attack them.
Yep.
Well, that's something else I needed a little clarity on.
Mm-hmm.
She realized when she saw the puzzle ball
Mm-hmm.
that what's his saw blade head was holding.
Yes, because Kurt had been holding it and messing with it when she was looking at the journal.
Yeah.
Right, that's what Kurt was holding. So obviously that had to do with the scene in the basement. But what I was trying to understand is how did Dana figure that out just by seeing that? Again, maybe I was way too stoned when I was watching this the second time or the first time, but how is it she pieced together that the basement was where they made their choice by looking at that puzzle ball?
I mean, she saw that exact same puzzle ball in the basement, and she realized that the family that attacked them came from the journal.
Yep.
And they also, at the time that she's looking at the puzzle ball, the ballerina is behind her, and there was that ballerina in the music box. So I think she's just putting like 2 + 2 + 2 + 2. Oh my God, we picked this horror.
Yep.
We picked this ourselves.
Okay, I can see that. I can see that.
Yep. Now, at this point is just where Pat was just at. The elevator begins to move again. We realize that this is not just a couple of monsters. There's hundreds and hundreds of monsters in like in these little cubes, just waiting to be called.
And
Such an awesome concept.
And that was what Lynn was referring to when she said in the stable.
Yep.
Yeah.
The stable was the stable of their creatures.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And
how are they feeding them and where are they pooping?
Okay, let's not go down that road.
Okay.
So the lab workers know that Dana and Marty are in an elevator and they're looking for them. And they finally figure out where they are. They need to get them out of the elevator and kill Marty to fulfill this ritual, because time's ticking. They bring that elevator down. There's a guard with a gun in their face who gets distracted by the zombie arm that was in the elevator with Marty and Dana. They knock him out, take his gun, and leave the elevator.
Amazing how easily, I thought it was amazing how easily that skinny little stoner took this guard out so easily. I mean, the guy's head hit the damn wall hard enough to leave a blood splatter.
Mm-hmm.
Where does Marty come up with that kind of strength?
Stoner strength. Stoner strength. Nerd rage.
Okay, well.
And I love that the hand crawls up and starts like fucking the guy's face up. It's great.
And Marty thanks Zombie Arm.
Yes.
He's walking out.
I love that.
That was pretty clever.
Yeah.
Thanks, Zombie Arm.
Yeah. So they're creeping forward in this very sterile looking space. A woman's voice comes over the PA and says that they shouldn't be there, that things should have gone differently. And this voice is the director, and it's played by the fabulous Sigourney Weaver.
Awesome.
And she explains that she knows that they've been through pain, but they need to make the sacrifice to please the Ancient Ones. Dana and Marty barricade themselves in a small security office as many, many armed soldiers approach. And things are looking pretty grim for them at the moment. However, Dana sees a suspicious button that says purge, and she says, I'm going to press this because why not?
Yeah, do it.
Oh, as
And
soon as you see Purge, you know hell is about to be unleashed.
yep. So she hits it. The elevators begin opening, and wave after wave of nightmare monsters are coming out of confinement and attacking.
So
I
fucking
stopped
good.
that scene and froze. I rewound and froze that scene at least 4 times. The scene was too short. There were too many creatures. I literally had to rewind it and watch different parts of the screen to watch the different creatures do the different things to all these guards.
Yeah.
That was
So-
my favorite scene.
Yeah, mine too. I loved this part of the movie.
I mean, I lose count of how many monsters there are. You got killer clowns, you got the giant snake, there's a huge vampire bat, there's a unicorn. It just goes on and on.
Fucking dude, this gets an extra rewatch just because they had a fucking unicorn killing people. A unicorn.
Dude, that and you and I are on so opposite sides of the fence of that it's hysterical. Come on, why did you have to have a unicorn killing people?
Because it's hilarious. It's hilarious.
All right.
Oh, so this was a bold strategy on Dana's part, but it appears to have paid off.
Unicorns are magical.
Yeah, they fought rainbows. We've all seen Deadpool.
All right. Yeah. Yes. Yes.
This is true.
You know who would have approved? Deadpool would have approved of that murderous unicorn.
Yes, he would.
Well, the things he did with the stuffed one were pretty scary.
So Hadley, Sitterson, Lynn, and Truman are all locked into that room where they have been watching all along, but it appears the time has come for them to have to deal with the monsters outside. So the door is getting beat down. Several of them get in and they attack Truman. As a last-ditch effort, Truman blows himself up, taking the monsters that were on him out with him. But this also sends Hadley flying across the room. He hits the wall and falls to the ground, where he is attacked by the merman he so much wanted to see.
I love
That was fitting. As
Fucking
soon as
loved
you
it.
saw that thing come out of the shadows,
Mhm.
as soon as I saw it, I'm like, merman. Oh, there you go.
Yeah. I'm not sure the merman was going to be able to take Thor out, but I loved this scene. The merman was ridiculous. The little spout on his back that squirted the blood up. And I love when he's like, no, merman.
Oh, come on.
Come on. Killed by the
Again,
merman.
that was one of the scenes where when it presented itself, I just had to scratch my head and go, really?
It was a great payoff.
Was that really necessary?
Yes.
Oh, it was a good callback. It was a good
Dude,
callback.
if I didn't get to see that merman, I would have taken a rewatch off this movie.
So
Get out.
Citizen opens the hatch to get away, and Lynn gets grabbed by some kind of tentacle creature, get carried away. He jumps down and only gets a few feet when he's met by a blade, and this is not by any of the monsters, but by Dana herself. Citizen tells her to kill him. Doesn't specify who, but we all pretty much know who he's talking about.
Well, at this point, yeah.
Yeah. So Dana and Marty keep going forward, looking for a way out, and they find themselves in the huge antechamber with the stone sigils of different archetypes filled with blood. There's a menacing kind of growling noise coming from underneath their feet. Marty looks down. He can see something moving. He doesn't know what's up, but he's like, oh. Dana realizes that the 5 stones are them. And when she says they're being punished, Marty asks, punished for what? And this is where the director finally makes her appearance. She says they're punished for being young. She explains the ritual to them and tells them that there's only 8 minutes left before the sun comes up. And if Marty's still alive to see the sun, he won't be for much longer because the ancient ones will rise and kill everyone on the planet.
Yeah.
Dana holds the gun to his head, says she's sorry, but before she can shoot, a werewolf attacks her. Marty and the director get into a scuffle that ends with the little sister from the Buckner family putting a hatchet through the director's head. Marty knocks her and the director down into the pit, just as the earth begins to tremble again. Marty and Dana have a nice talk where says she's dying. She's sorry for almost shooting him. And he says he's sorry for letting the werewolf attack her.
As he lights a big fat joint.
Yeah, and he also says that he's sorry for ending the world. They hold hands, smoking a big fat joint as the room crumbles around them. Giant hand rushes up through the screen, up through the chamber, exits through the cabin, slams down on the camera, and this is the end of our film.
Yeah. So during some of the exposition with the director, she talks about the virgin and the fool.
Mm-hmm.
And Lynn and I had actually discussed this a little earlier. I thought for a minute we were going to find out that Marty was actually the virgin, because you never see him with a girl and he's really mousy and, just kind of disheveled. And I wouldn't have been surprised if he was actually the virgin, because we learned earlier on the couch that Dana is not a virgin. And then we find out again from the director that Dana is not a virgin. She says we work with what we have.
Right.
So I thought it might have been a clever ending if we had found out at the end that actually Marty was the virgin and he could have shot her and lived and saved the day.
But that would have violated the horror movie rules, because the virgin is always the last one to die. That was the whole premise that I picked up when everyone around her died, and she was optional, as they say. Because just like when you go back to the first Scream movie and the rules are set out, the virgin always dies last.
Right.
So when Marty got stabbed and pulled into the pit earlier in the movie, you can't really think of him as being the one that would be the virgin. He was killed too early.
But he didn't die.
Okay, you make a good point.
But I'm glad they didn't end the movie like that, because seeing that giant hand come up and knowing that all of mankind has now been destroyed was freaking awesome for me. I mean, where's the big hand when we need it?
I mean, the biggest thought I had about the end of this movie is, how are humans able to subdue these all-powerful gods in the first place? Like, how did they get them underground and set up this whole thing with them that they'll kill people once a year? Like, how did that even start? Like, that to me is almost as fascinating as the whole movie was,
Well, maybe the gods set all this up and just said, hey, you keep giving us, these sacrifices and we'll let you do what you're doing up there. I don't know. But, I don't think we talked about the scenes with all the different monsters enough. And we're not going to break it down again here, but I just want to say, you've got the fucking vampire bats. You've got the killer clowns. You've got the giant cobras. There was one monster. There was literally just a big cat that somebody brought on the set and just let run around.
And let's not dismiss the robot spider with the saw blade.
Yes.
Fucking awesome.
Yes.
That's one of the reasons why I would rewatch the scene right after Dana did the purge and everything burst out of the elevator doors. There were so many different creatures there that as soon as the doors opened, I would watch a different part of the screen and let it play, and then rewind it and then watch a different part of the screen.
Yep.
And you see all these different creatures and what they do. Something that looks like a giant blob comes tentacles out of one of the doors, pulls someone in, and out flows what looks like a waterfall of blood.
Awesome
Another
scene.
ghost comes flying through the air, sucking the spirit out of another body and flying off with it.
Yeah.
You see the robot spider with the spinning saw blade, and all you hear is near, near, near as it's cutting into people. I'm like, I'm going to see this again and again because I'm missing something.
The clown. This was such a great scene. It was a monster orgy with blood, more blood than you wanted. I just thought this was ingenious. I loved it. It's great.
From the moment my favorite point in the movie was when they got down into the down below in the cubes and the stable and the creatures.
Yeah.
Everything up to that for me was very, I don't know, like playing off of different horror movies.
Yeah. It was predictable.
Like a piece of this movie was put in it. A piece of this movie was put in it. Let's add some Shaggy and Scooby-Doo characters to it.
I mean, I think that was all done on purpose.
Yeah, there was some good humor. It was fun. It was very predictable. They weren't, reinventing the wheel. But once we get down underground, that last 34 minutes of the movie
that was the best part of the movie.
It was fucking great, man. I could watch that last 34 minutes 5 more times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's It's interesting to me because there's a lot of different monsters that they show you in that whole melee, but there's like even more that happen in the cubes. And I also read that if you pay close attention, there's 4 distinct monsters in there that actually are from the Left 4 Dead video game franchise, because the point was initially there was supposed to be a game released and it was supposed to be done at the same time as the movie came out. And it was like a joint effort thing, like that you'd see these monsters in the movie and then there'd be like stuff about the movie in the video game. But then when the movie got shelved, it didn't happen. So
yeah, I had read that they wanted to put a video game angle into the plot of the movie too, but it didn't work out.
Yeah. So I thought that was interesting.
All right. Are we ready to give our rewatches?
Yeah, go for it.
All right, Pat, go ahead. You give us your rewatch first.
Okay, well, this may not surprise you, but I think my whole thought process in the movie was tainted, thinking it was a ghost story and being disappointed that it wasn't. There was a lot of good points to the movie, but again, the last 30 minutes of the movie was actually the most entertaining part of the movie. Monster movies aren't really my big thing, so I would have to give it 3 stars.
3 rewatches from Pat. Delynn?
So I'm going to give it 3.5 rewatches. And the reason why I'm not giving it a super high score is because, like you guys, if you think of this movie in terms of it's an hour and a half long and the first hour is spent in the cabin, back and forth between the lab, which is entertaining to a certain degree, but the rubber really doesn't hit the road until that last half hour.
Exactly.
And it's like, and it takes off like a shot at that point, and it was so good at that point. So I'm taking some points off because I feel like they could have gotten us there a little quicker and you could have spent more time down there.
Absolutely.
And, like you could have done 45 minutes in the cabin, 45 minutes down in the lab, and giving us like another 15 minutes of that melee in the lab. I would have appreciated it more because I thought that was the best part of the whole movie. So that's why I'm going to give it 3.5.
Interesting. All right. And so for me, I agree with you guys. The last, 34 minutes of this movie was a powerhouse. It was a powder keg. It was great. The first 55 minutes of this movie, it was good. I mean, I'm not a horror movie fan, like I had already said. And, I had apologized before this podcast started to Tony, for what might happen at the end here. But I think I'm going to surprise everybody, including myself. This movie was smart horror. It was fun. It was funny. It had great payoffs. It had great monsters.
Self-aware.
It had a great ending. It was a fucking good movie, man. I can't believe I'm going to say this, but for me, I'm going to give this 4 rewatches, and I'll tell you why. Because I hate horror movies, and I could see somebody that is really into all this, loving this movie. So I'm going to give it 4 rewatches, and with Delynn's 3.5, Pat's 3, and my 4, I'm going to give this 4.25 rewatches.
You're adding instead of dividing.
Well, you know what? As we all know from day one, the desert sliding scale of rewatches is no science involved, and I make up the rules. So, and I'm also going to give that 1/4 star for Tony, because he can't be here to defend this movie. So, Tony, that extra 1/4 star is for you. So this is 4.25 rewatches. If you haven't seen Cabin in the Woods, what are you waiting for? Go see this movie. It's a great movie. And so that'll do it for us this week. I want to thank Delynn. Of course, it's always doing the podcast with you is always a lot of fun. Pat, the podcaster with an opinion. You brought it like you always do with a packed bong. I love it. And I want to thank, of course, the listeners for coming by, listening to the show, supporting the podcast. If you want to support this podcast further and help us put out better content, you can do that through the Anchor app. We appreciate it. And we will be back next week for our Halloween episode, where we will be reviewing Delin, do you want to let them know?
It's the original Halloween. It's the OG, baby. We're doing
The
it for Halloween.
OG Halloween. And as
Bring
you
it.
can all probably guess, I am not looking forward to doing this podcast. But I will watch this movie again, as it's been about 25 years since I've seen it. And we'll break it down for you. So thanks, you guys, for doing the podcast with us tonight. I had a lot of fun doing this one. And thanks for listening. Until next time, hey, did you ever see that movie? Bye.
Bye.
See you later.